You read the title right. The time has come to say goodbye, and I'm going to leave you with a final gift, a parting gift. I can't do me anymore, so I'm not going to. A lot of you think that Dearly, my beautiful bride, aka Giggly Girl, is my second wife. She's not. She's my third. There are parts of my past I've never shared with you, and I'm going to share them with you today. Because I'm finished with this, I'm not going to do it anymore. I come from a background riddled with mental illness, toxicity, and dysfunction, and abuse. And I spent the first 40 years of my life thinking that was normal. Well, it's not. Unfortunately, that is the case for a lot of folks. It was the case for me for the longest time. I'm not there anymore. I'm not going back there. I've just got to be done with this. So, I talked on the phone today with an old friend, Travis Daigle, the guy who I've been pushing his channel for him. He's an old battle buddy of mine from basic training back at Fort Benning, Georgia, 15 years ago. His channel's called Fighting Past 40. A lot of you have gone over there. I had no clue how much this man has grown in the last 15 years and what he's become, but he has inspired me to do something, to become courageous and drop some truths I've never dropped. I've shared things on this channel that people have been shocked I've shared. For instance, one of the truths I thought I'd never share was just a few weeks ago when I shared about how I currently am paying child support for 3 children that I haven't seen in more than a decade, that I know I'm never going to see again, because they've let me know that in no uncertain terms, and that's part of the story today. I'm not angry about paying it. I'm not bitter. I'm not resentful. I'm happy to pay it. I have the money to pay. The only reason I didn't pay it years ago was because it wasn't humanly possible for me to pay it due to the situation I was in. And that's when I was down and out in the Philippines, had nothing, and Dearly and I were trying to figure out how to feed our infant son so he wouldn't starve to death. But I'm going to own the fact, because my buddy Travis is big on this thing about personal ownership, I'm going to own the fact that the reason I was there and the reason I was down and out was because of the decisions I made. It was no one's fault that I was down and out in the Philippines and that I was stuck in that country for 6 years without a way out, living on an expired visa most of the time I was there, hiding in the shadows, hoping I wouldn't get picked up by immigration. Because, see, they wouldn't have deported me. That would have been too kind. The rest of the world doesn't operate like the U.S., where if you're caught under those circumstances, you get a free plane ride home. You get thrown in a hole where you will remain until someone on your behalf will step forward and pay your back dues with the immigration department, plus buy you a one-way ticket out of the country, at which time an immigration official escorts you to your next stop-off. For instance, like you fly from Manila to South Korea, for example. If you're coming back to the U.S., that official will get off the plane with you, make sure that you board your plane to the U.S., wait until, now again, with a ticket you've paid for, somebody has paid for on your behalf. Once your plane leaves, takes off back to the U.S., they will then go back to the Philippines to ensure that you have gone. I had no one who would have paid that for me. If I would have gotten caught, I would still be living in that hole right now in the Philippines, in a cell with dozens of other people, okay? With no food. They don't feed you. If you don't have somebody coming to the jail to feed you, and this is if you're arrested for any crime, you don't eat. I was estranged from my entire family. I still am from most of them, and that's a good thing, and I'm getting to this. I almost told my Muhammad Ali story the other day, and I said I'm going to wait and tell you another time. You know what I was doing? I was waiting for my father to die before I told this story. I'm going to tell it now because my mother and my father are both dead to me. They've made this clear under no uncertain terms, so I see no reason not to say these things. And I'm going to tell you about that second wife, okay? Married about 9 days. Okay, on paper, longer, but it's coming. Because I can't do this anymore. I quit. And talking to Travis Daigle for an hour and 15 minutes on the phone today is what inspired me to come out here and drop these truths and be done with this nonsense. A lot of mental illness, predominantly on my maternal side, a lot of bigotry on the other. I am a huge Muhammad Ali fan. When we took our cross-country trip this summer, me, my wife dearly, and our son Daniel, my favorite stop, even though we saw the Grand Canyon, we spent time in the Rocky Mountains, my favorite stop was the Muhammad Ali Center, the museum in honor of this man in Louisville, Kentucky. We spent all day there. That man, you know, a lot of people think of him as the greatest boxer of all time. I agree with George Foreman. George Foreman says, no, he wasn't. George Foreman personally thinks Joe Louis was. But George Foreman says that he believes Muhammad Ali was the greatest man of all time. He inspired, he did great things. He showed people how to reach down through their fear, past their concerns, and pull out the best of themselves and go out and do something great. He's done that with me, and Travis Daigle has taken me to the next level today, and I'm going to tell you why. I have not always been a Muhammad Ali fan because I was not allowed to be. I was raised to believe that Muhammad Ali was a draft-dodging, anti-American, radical Islamic jihadist who hated white people. That's how I was raised. And as a matter of fact, I got kicked out of one of my childhood best friend's houses for saying that. It was one of Muhammad Ali's later fights, early 80s, early 1980s. I was 8 or 9 years old. Everybody was excited because Muhammad Ali was fighting. Muhammad Ali was fighting. One of my friend's fathers was watching the fight in their living room. So we went in to watch the fight, about 3 or 4 of us guys, 7, 8, 9 years old. Everybody's cheering for Ali, they're rooting for Ali, the fight's getting ready to start. And the guy's dad says, Kevin, do you like Muhammad Ali? I said, no, I don't. And he says, well, why not? And I said, because he's a draft dodger, he's a racist, he hates white people. This guy looked at me and he said, Kevin, get out of my house. I looked over at his wife, my friend's mom, and she said, out. I went home and I told my care providers, that's the term I'm going to use. They were like, why are you home? I said, well, I got kicked out. I told them, you know, whatever. And my paternal care provider said, well, they just can't handle the truth. The truth is Muhammad Ali was none of those things. And it is so unfortunate that I was raised to believe that. And it took me until much later in life, until adulthood, until I got away from that situation and stayed away from that situation and stopped allowing sick, toxic, demented people to pull me back into that situation out of this sense of believing that I needed to go back to that situation because we shared DNA material before I finally started seeing the truth and realized what I realized today, that Muhammad Ali was one of the greatest human beings that ever lived. He stood up for those who didn't have the ability to stand up for themselves. He single-handedly ended this draft nonsense. I voluntarily entered the military at a time of war. That's where I met my man Travis Daigle. Let me tell you, when I was in Iraq, I was very happy knowing that the man to my right and the man to my left and the women to my left and right wanted to be there. You know, it's something. He wasn't allowed to go eat in the same places as the whites. He couldn't use the same restrooms, but the government, according to the government, said, hey, but you're good enough to go over here and kill these folks that never did nothing to you. He stood up to him and he told him, no, the man's a hero. I don't want to spend too much traction on this. All right, so on the other side, we've got severe issues, predominantly borderline personality disorder. Okay. You're thinking, oh my God, Kevin, you've been married 3 times. You seem like such a great guy. Hey, we all have our faults. I'm not perfect. And any relationship I've ever been in the past, I will claim 100% responsibility for 50% of its failure. It takes 2. I was one of those 2. First wife, second wife, getting it a hell of a lot more right with the third one. But let me explain before her, okay? Just as little girls have a tendency to grow up and marry a guy or date a guy just like dear old dad, little boys have the same tendency grow up, get involved with women, date women, marry women, just like dear old mom. And when mom has got borderline personality disorder, doesn't get help, that's what your sense of normalcy is. And you think, okay, as a partner, as a guy, it's my job to find a really pretty woman, because, hey, we all like pretty girls, who is just wonderful when they're not spinning with a freaking meltdown, mental health crisis. But when that does happen, it's our job to do a couple of things. Make them happy. It's life's goal to make them happy, okay? And it's going to be my life's goal, like we saw growing up, to be that caretaker, to be that, I forget what you call them, but the individual that guards the vampire during the day while the vampire sleeps during the day, to make sure that any false sense of reality these folks have, because they have massive, major false senses of reality when they go through these cycles, to make sure that that is not questioned by anybody, because whoever questions it and says, that's I don't think the way you're thinking there, the way you're seeing things is actually very realistic. Once that person is gone, it's that person stuck living with the person with BPD who's going to pay the price for having let that person through the gate. It's learned behavior, it's patterns that we see that becomes our norm. I have a sister who is in health therapy, the healthcare industry, mental health. She says basically the first 3 years of our lives, it's like we're like a projector recording, not playing a movie, but watching. And we're just taking it all in and imprinting this on our brain, okay? And this is what we see. What's the number one fear for people who have borderline personality disorder? Abandonment. Okay, this same sister told me a story when we reconnected last year after being estranged for 10 years. Estranged from everybody for 10 years. They knew where I was. My sisters didn't, and they were told that it was not known where I was, but the care providers knew exactly where I was. But she tells a story. She's much younger than me and our other sibling. She's 8 years younger than me. She says she was in third or fourth. No, it was before she started school. I was like in 5th or 6th grade. Our female care provider was watching a talk show. I think it was the Oprah show. And somebody said on there, a guest said, and we've all heard it, that a daughter is a daughter all of her life. A son is a son until he takes a wife. And my little sister remembers this at 4 or 5 years old because it was very traumatic for her. She said that our female care provider had a mental breakdown and spent the rest of the day crying and going on and on about how she was going to lose Kevin. And my little sister says she can look back now as an adult who is educated, got out of college in 4 years with a 4.0 GPA, went to graduate school. She can look back now and know that that's when she determined she was going to abandon me before I abandoned her first. Kicked me out of the house when I was a high school. Listen, I was having premarital sex with my high school sweetheart, who, by the way, and this is going to be very factual. Guys, I'm dropping some stuff on you here today. That's the only individual I've ever had, the only person underage that I've ever had intercourse with in my life, and at the time I was underage as well, okay? We're talking about a high school kid here. I was state champion miler in track and field. I was drum major in band. I was an honor roll student. I was doing everything I could possibly do right, trying to please people who were never pleased with me, who made it clear to me from the beginning I would never amount to anything but a shit stain, okay? So I did excel and overachieve, trying to say, look, I'm worthy, look, I'm worthy, look, I'm worthy. I'm not that shit stain you're saying I am. When it became knowledge that I was having premarital sex with my high school sweetheart, my mother kicked me out of the house. I was 17. Like I was some dirtbag, the next school shooter that she wanted to wash her hands of because I was doing something everybody else my age was doing. Okay, you know how she found out? Because my high school sweetheart's mother came to talk to my mother because she had found out, and she said, look, I'm not any happier about this than you are, but I want to let you know I'm going to take my daughter to the clinic and get her put on birth control because I'm not going to be a grandmother at 40, and my daughter's not having a kid as a teenager. My mom blew up on her, went off on her, said she was supporting this, terrible thing going on. And I remember my girlfriend's mother said, what would you do if, and she pointed to this younger sister I'm talking about, if she came to you when she's a teenager and she says, hey, I'm active, I want to be safe, can you help me? Her mother said, she better never come to me and say anything like that. Well, guess what? That let that little girl know she couldn't go talk to her mother if she became sexually active as a teenager. She had nowhere to go, and guess what? When she was a teenager, she got pregnant. Now, she overcame the odds. Like I said, she went on and got her education. She's a professional, and there's people watching. I am not apologizing to the previous generation. My sister, I'm sorry. I'm done with this. I'm serious. You probably saw that title and thought, oh, here we go, another clickbait video. I'm done. So, anyway, I could go on and I could go on and I could go on with example after example. But let's get to wife number 2. That should have never happened. I agreed to go through with that while I was in Iraq on trazodone with a woman I had dated for about 90 days before I deployed. I came home on leave, and the next day I was walking down the aisle in this pre-planned ceremony, wondering if it was even real because I was so medicated out of my head. Okay? I realized it was true over the next 9 days while I went with this woman while she was seeking drugs at every healthcare clinic and hospital we could find anywhere around the greater Tacoma, Washington area. I got back to Iraq, I emailed her, and I said, you will never see me again. There is no way, and I told her, and this is the truth, I said, I would rather die in a fiery hailstorm of bullets over here in Iraq than spend another minute with you. And I kept my word. I never saw her again. Now, she went out and she did the paperwork and the legalese stuff of the divorce and all that stuff. And I can assure you that when I married Dearly, I was legally divorced very happily for the second time. How did I ever get involved with that person in the first place? Again, just like little girls grow up to date guys that remind them of dear old dad and marry them sometimes, little boys grow up to date and marry little girls that remind them of dear old mother. You talk about BPD, this woman had it. When I was 40 and when I was down and out in the Philippines and I had nothing left and I was left for dead by everybody, I said to myself, I cannot live with myself anymore. And I made changes, and I stopped, and I put the filter right here. And when I saw people from that point forward coming in that had all this cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs crap going on with them that I was raised with and the only thing I'd ever known, the barrier went up and they were kept out, and I've stuck to it. And here's something interesting. Years later, just a few years ago, I would finally read Eckhart Tolle. And he says in there that he had that big aha moment when he said to himself, I can't live with myself anymore. And that's when he realized his big aha moment was that there is I and there is me. It's two separate entities. And I went over this again recently when I was reading a book called Rational Recovery, where the author explains the difference between the prehistoric midbrain that thrives off of urges, sex drive, sense for pleasure, desire for pleasure, and then the more advanced modern brain of the human being that's been around for about 35,000 years, which allows us to reason and logic that says, yeah, my midbrain might be saying, hey, let's just sit around the house and drink beer all day because a buzz feels better than work. Or, wow, I'm feeling some sexual urges. Let's go out there and just, bathe her and bring her to me. It's that neocortex, the advanced brain that says, this stuff isn't right. No. So it's been a journey. I'm almost 50 and I'm finally getting to this point. I knew when I was 40 that I couldn't live with myself anymore, and I chose not to. It's time to say goodbye. And this is your farewell. This is your parting gift. I'm going to give it to you now with no further ado. And I'm at this point, I have the balls to come out here and make this video after talking to Travis Daigle today for an hour and 15 minutes. If you have not gone to his channel, Fighting Past 40, and subscribed and watch that man talk, you're missing out. I no longer am going to live with me to any degree. Here's your gift. I now have an email address that you can use to contact me, to tell me your stories associated with any and all things paranormal, UFOs, cryptozoological stuff, Bigfoot, Sasquatch. I have not done this. This channel is hugely successful. 285,000 subscribers. Last year was a bad month. We had over 1 million views. Good months, we get 5 million. I have been hesitant to allow our viewers, you, who are the majority of you, wonderful people, to be able to contact me with your stories. I've said, just leave it in the comment section, I'll get to it. So many stories come in, they get buried in the comment section, I can't find them. You've been done a disservice, I've been done a disservice, because I have not allowed myself to allow this channel and our viewers to get to the point to where we can. And I've been doing it, you know why? Because I've been hiding from lunatics. Well, let me tell you, they will find you anyway because they have. I'm going to share a little bit more lunacy with you here, and then I'm going to get out of here because my beautiful bride dearly, who loves me unconditionally, as does my son, and as I do them, is waiting on me to come have dinner. Let's talk about lunatic wife number 2. She found my wife on the internet and sent her message. We've got copies of all this stuff. Trust me. No further comment on that. But she, aside from assassinating my character and whatnot, went as far as to tell my wife that if she is tired of the abuse that I'm putting her and our son through, that she has safe haven with her, and that she can get our son and go live with her, and she will make sure to protect them from me. This is a woman I have not seen and spoken to in person since 2009. 12, 13 years, that's 13 years. I've had no contact with this lunatic. She finds my wife on social media and offers for her to bring our son to come live with her to get away from me and my abuse. You see what I'm getting at, folks? Let's talk about the lunatic parental figures. I reached out last year with a phone call. The male parental advisor wanted to pick up an argument where we dropped off 12 years before. I said, I'm not doing this. I said, if you want to have a healthy, non-toxic relationship, I'm willing to do that. But if it's all going to be like it always was, I'm not. He was shocked because I'd never stood up to the man. Okay? I was that tiny little bully looking up at this 6'2", 200 plus pound, angry man who, okay, the other one never even returned my phone call. Never even returned my phone call. Okay? The female care provider. What's that? It lets me know. Well, not interested, right? But here's where it gets better. And yeah, I'm saying this on social media. I've reconnected with, well, I talked to all of my sisters. One is so caught up in her lunaticish relationship with the care providers, I can't have a relationship with her for now. I'm not going to say never, but she is too gone for me to have any sort of healthy relationship with her. I love her. We share DNA. I want nothing but the best for her, but I will not have relationships like that anymore, and so I'm abstaining for now. The other two, we have come a long way in reconnecting and rebuilding relationships. But let me explain the lunacy to you, okay? I call my birth mother from my family of origin. Won't even return my call. One of my sisters came to visit about, maybe it's been 4 months or so now, and they've both been down, and I've met some of my nieces and stuff that I've never met, some I haven't seen since they were in diapers. It's been enjoyable. Our birth mother wanted our sister to put my wife and my son in her car, who she's never met, take them to her house so she could spend the day with them, and then bring them back to me and drop them off here at our home in Virginia. Wanted nothing to do with me, didn't even want to return that call, but wanted to spend the day with my wife and with my son. How effing lunaticish is that? Now, I know, listen, after my first divorce, I've met a couple more women who I dated, got involved with. They met my mother, my birth mother. They both told me the same thing. And these women didn't know each other, never met each other. They told me, they said, Kevin, They said, I really hope this relationship works out between us because I like you, but I'm going to give you some advice. If it doesn't work out, never, ever, if you get involved with another woman after me that you really care about and you think is the one that you want to spend the rest of your life with, never let them be around your mother. Now, mind you, this is before I had that aha, I can't live with me moment, and I asked them both. Happened about a year and a half apart. I'm like, why is that? And they both said the same thing. Basically, she spent the entire time we were together telling me everything that was wrong with you, everything you've ever done bad, and all the reasons why I should run like hell from you. And this is before I understood borderline personality disorder and all these other things. Well, let me tell you, I have taken that advice. And I told my sister when she said this, I said, I can't believe you are asking this of me. She's like, well, you know, said the woman's name, the birth month. I said, yeah, but you should know that's something you don't even ask. Try to take the two most important people in my life into that situation. Are you serious? So anyway, of course it never happened, and of course it never will, okay? And I saw that new boundaries needed to be put in place. I'd taken down a couple boundaries a little too soon. But we're still working on relationship building, me and those sisters. So there it is. Listen, so I've opened the email. I was hesitant to do that for years because I was afraid these lunatics were going to find me. Here's the deal. They'll find you anyway. Wife number 2, already sending messages to my wife, inviting her to come live with her, with our son. The others, okay, inviting them to come stay with them so they can spell, we want to meet who married the guy that we think is dead, our son, who we will not acknowledge as being alive. Who's he married to? And they find you anyway. When I started this channel a few years ago, and this is information I got from the sisters I've reconnected with, I had a couple of trolls who were so relentless and who were coming on here and saying things that I knew only a family of origin member would know. I know who they are now. They'll find you anyway. So I refused years ago to continue to live with me and myself. That guy who would allow toxic, mentally ill MFers who don't work on it. Listen, mental illness is real. It's not your fault if you have it. I've got my own issues. But when I need to go talk to someone, I do. But if you have it and you're allowing it to destroy your life and the lives of everybody around you because you don't want to get help, that is your fault. I don't allow it around me, and I certainly as hell won't allow it around my family. And I don't. Okay? But the email's there. No more hiding. I will never hide from lunatics again because they're going to find you anyway, and I don't care. I've told you guys throughout the course of these videos since I hit this channel in 2018 hard, everything there is to know. There's no more secrets. There's no more secrets. And when there's no more secrets, no one can hurt you. They've hurt me enough. They will never, ever hurt me again. So you got the email address. It's in the About section. The other parting gift I hope you got out of this is the courage to stand up for yourself, be true, say enough's enough, understand none of that crap from your toxic, dysfunctional past was your fault. When you expose the demons to the light, they disappear. See you for more next time.